Okay, assuming that we brought water with us when we came in to begin with, we could be out or we could have very little left. We do not want to hasten the effects of hyperthermia. We need to keep our body lubricated. We need to understand the signs of dehydration. Very simple signs of dehydration are frequency of urination, color of your urine, and are you thirsty? If you're thirsty, that's the first sign of dehydration. If you have not went to the bathroom in quite a long time, once every 2 hours maximum, you're dehydrated. If your urine color is darker than straw yellow, you're probably dehydrated. You need to make sure that you can hydrate by getting at least 3 to 4 liters of water per day. You need to carry a container with you that will hold at least 1 US quarter liter. That is metal, not aluminum, stainless steel. I carry a 32-ounce stainless steel bottle, a small pack stove type ring that bottle will sit on top of, or the nesting cup that's inside here as well will sit on top of. So it sits together in a kit like this. I then have the ability to boil water and dump it, cover my water, taking off the lid, cover my water to boil it, or boil water simply in a cup. What most people don't realize is that getting your bottle or your cup or your boiling device up off the ground and up off the base of the fire is very important. The hottest part of the flame is 3 centimeters above the base. If I put this pack stove ring on the ground and build my fire around it, I allow oxygen underneath everything, so I have airflow to effectively heat my bottle faster and use less fuel while doing so. Okay, as we talk about water, we need to talk about survival priorities. Obviously your priorities are self-aid or first aid, depending on whether you're by yourself or with someone else. Your priorities then become shelter, water, fire, signaling for rescue, and so on. And the order changes depending on your environment. In this scenario, an eastern woodland, lost in the woods environment, in the summertime, our priorities are different. We don't need fire right this second. It's plenty warm out here. Now, do we need fire to boil our water? Absolutely. But our priorities first become creating that microclimate of shade, which we've done right here. We have also incorporated our signaling device with our shelter. So we've killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Now we need to think about water. Now we can boil that water, understanding of course that to build fire and babysit fire to boil water, we are effectively dehydrating ourselves. So we need to make sure if we're going to do that, we have a ready source of water close by so that we can drink water and consume water as we're boiling more water. There are a couple things you can carry in your kit that will take care of about 99% of your disinfection necessities for water if you don't want to build fire. One of them are chlorine dioxide tablets. These are by Aquamira. There are 12 tablets in this packet which will effectively treat 12 US quarts or liters of water. So 3 gallons of water per packet. I also have an Aquamira 50-gallon water filter which you can connect a hose to that comes with the filter, put it directly into the water source and drink from it through the suction valve, and it's good for 50 gallons of water. These are throwaway type filters. It's not, how do I know when 50 gallons is done? It's once I use it, I trash it and buy a new one. 50 gallons is a lot of water. You're not going to consume 50 gallons of water in 3 days or 4 days or 5 days. So if you get stuck in an emergency scenario and you use this, then you toss it. You can put these 2 items in your pack and very effectively disinfect quite a bit of water. You're still taking a chance without boiling the water, but you're also going to have to think about what your resources are. Part of the resources are the hydration you have in your body, and how much of that resource are you giving up to boil water versus the chance of getting a waterborne pathogen by using these things. Okay, once I decide that I'm going to build a fire, I need to prepare for that fire, and I need to understand fire. The first thing I need to understand is that fire needs 3 things to burn. It needs fuel, or wood in this case. It needs oxygen from the surrounding air, and it needs combustion. In the Pathfinder School we teach surefire. Surefire means that you have fire when you need it, no matter what. Surefire involves 3 things. Surefire involves a heavily combustible material that is impregnated with an accelerant, and there's a difference between accelerants and fuels. Accelerants are those things that will catch fire by fume. The fumes will ignite. And then it needs to be waterproof. And we have several things that we use at the Pathfinder School that can help you to start fire very effectively, even in the wettest conditions. We have a fire steel, which is a ferrocerium rod that is in an ABS plastic case with a built-in striker that you can effectively strike sparks with. These sparks are approximately 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if you have a cigarette lighter, that's always going to be your first option in dry weather. That way you're not using the material off your ferrocerium rod if you don't have to. And your cigarette lighter should always be orange. There is a case in the back of this that will hold surefire tinder like Micro Inferno. We also sell a Mini Inferno, which is the same formula effectively, except instead of coming in cigarette butt size packages that will fit in the back of this fire steel, it comes in its own tin that can be reused to make char if you decide to do so, and it comes in a wax cake. And there are 6 of these cakes to every container, and these cakes will burn for approximately 6 to 7 minutes. What's important about Surefire, or what's most important about it, is that it is waterproof. So let's take a look at that for a minute. If for some reason our fire tinder happens to get wet because we fall over a canoe, or we are submerged in water, we want to ensure that we can still start fire, and that is the pure essence of what we call Surefire at the Pathfinder School. So we need to make sure that these things will still work if they're wet. Our ferrocerium rod, as we said, throws very hot sparks. When combined with a waterproof tinder, like Micro Inferno or Mini Inferno, we can open this up to expose the fibers inside that should be dry because this is impregnated with wax. And once we do that and we expose fibers up where they can catch these sparks, we should effectively be able to create fire. And as you can see, we can do that. You can hear it pop and crack because it's wet, but it will continue to burn. This gives us the time that we may need to ignite tinder that could be questionable as far as its value because it's damp or wet. Okay, so like we said, sooner or later we're going to need fire to disinfect our water or to heat our body. So the thing we have to remember is we have to build a proper fire lay, because if we decide that we are going to boil our water for disinfection purposes during the heat of the day or in hot weather environments, warmer weather, we need to make sure that we expend as little hydration doing that as possible, which means building our fire correctly one time so that we can walk away from it while our water is boiling. We don't have to tend to that fire. Part of what's very important with that, as I said, is getting that bottle up off the ground. So I'll squeeze this stove together just a little bit so that my bottle will sit squarely on top of it without teetering. And then I will proceed to build my fire around it. Now, we have to understand with our fire we need several elements. We need tinder, we need kindling, and we need fuel. Tinder are highly combustible materials, and we have our tinder with our Mini and Micro Inferno. We have an extended burn time so that we don't have to worry about finding the highly combustible tinder sources, because we have that. That's our Surefire. Along with that, we're going to need a pile of kindling, which is sticks that are pencil size and smaller down to the size of needles. And then we also need some fuel that we're going to use once our tinder's consumed to keep our fire going. Building a proper fire lay around this bottle will help us do a lot of things. It will help us to ensure that our water boils, like I said, without us having to stand around and babysit it. So what I generally will do is I'll use bigger type fuel to build a bit of a fence around it and place it strategically around my bottle. I want to allow plenty of oxygen flow in here, so I've got to spread this out. The biggest mistake I see people do is they build fires that smother themselves because they don't allow enough oxygen into the fire itself. So we want to leave plenty of room for oxygen. And I'm going to leave a very small port in order for me to put this highly combustible micro or mini Inferno inside there, and then I'm going to start this fire, build it with fuel, and walk away and allow it to boil. And you can see that I've built a fire lay around this fire, and I've left one side open. And I'm going to light my micro Inferno or my mini Inferno. And then I'm going to slide it inside my fire lay, and I've got plenty of time with this. And then I'm going to stack some more of this kindling around that on both sides, so that I have this fire essentially built all the way around my bottle. In sort of semi-log cabin fashion. Then I'm going to take the bigger pieces of fuel and add those in. So that I can then walk away. And just let this thing burn. So I'm not expending any calories or expending any hydration, excuse me, waiting on this and sitting in front of a hot fire. Okay guys, we are not sure if you can see that or not. 3 minutes in, we have an absolute rolling boil. See if I can get this camera to focus in on this water. So anything beyond this now is just wasting water. We can do the same thing with our cup, and we can put more water on the fire if we want to, right on top of our pack stove, or we can let this cool and get our pack stove out of the fire with a stick, let it cool down as well, and just know that we got a big raging fire. Because we have a waterproof bag that we've been keeping our gear inside of our pack in that we didn't want to get wet, we also have the ability now to boil and dump our water. So we can let that cool down a little bit, dump the water into this bag, and boil again while we still have fire had we not taken our pack stove out.